Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militan Ena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, nice to be back with all of you. And today the format is slightly different. I'll speak a little bit, I'll read a little bit, something that I wanted to share with all of you. And after that, I will take the questions that have already come up, and I'll be able to answer at least a few of them before the end of the session. I wanted to share with all of you a certain portion of Chaitanya Charitamrita. I wanted to tell you about the beauty and the wonderful language and the message and the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so that you will also appreciate and read more of Chaitanya Charitamrita that Srila Prabhupada wrote and translated and wrote purports. That's the intention. So I'm reading from that portion of the Leela when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited Varanasi. In fact, this is the time when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and as you all know, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be, with a few devotees, would be singing, dancing in the streets, in the gullies of Varanasi. And Varanasi is the capital, at least one of the capitals of the impersonalist philosophers, Shankaracharya followers. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a young, brilliant sannyasi in saffron robes, shaved head, and with long arms, very beautiful, golden luster, and he would be singing and dancing, chanting Krishna's name and encouraging everyone to chant. So the strict, scholarly, Brahminical Shankaracharya followers, they were amazed to see this one, and they thought that what's going on? Look at him, he's a sannyasi. Sannyasi means that he should be, little aloof and should be very elevated, and so he should not be mixing so much with the common people, and he should know that he is in a very elite position. And what is he doing? Going to common people in the streets and telling them to chant. Oh, he has brought disrepute to our sannyas ashram. He has brought disrepute to Brahmins. What's going on? Maybe he's some kind of a sentimentalist. So this was the kind of a talk that was going on in the town, among the Brahmanas, among the Pandits of Varanasi. And then this news reached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then one of the very prominent scholars of that time, Prakashananda Saraswati, he was an intelligent person, very sober, very mature. He said, no, let's have a gathering of all the sannyasis, of all the pandits of our town, and we will invite Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and we will engage in a conversation with him and ask him why he does this, why is he not like us, reading Vedanta philosophy and reading some, studying and cultivating knowledge like a sannyasi should be doing. So a meeting was arranged and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was aware of all the undercurrents and the discussions that's going on among the Pandits. He was very much aware of it. And then he came to that meeting. And as he came to that meeting, you can imagine 500 and more years ago in our country, there was a place to wash feet and then come into the assembly, especially Brahmanas. It's not that they will, walking everywhere and then you will walk in and then. So there was a place to wash his feet, and then he moved a little this side, and right there, in a seemingly not so clean place, but taking a very humble position, he sat there, very inconspicuous. But of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu may sit in a most inconspicuous place, but the splendor, the luster of his transcendental body was so, everyone could recognize that he has come and he is sitting there. So Prakashananda Saraswati goes there and holds his hand and says, "No, why are you sitting here? Please come." And he invites him and takes him inside and gives him an important place to sit. And then the conversation goes on. And they all know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his younger days, he was known as Nimai Pandit. He was very scholarly. He knew Sanskrit grammar, Tarka, Nyaya, and he was into debates and defeating scholars and all of that. So they knew he is very scholarly in his younger days. But now he is singing, dancing, and all of that. So they engage in a conversation, and the conversation becomes quite technical. I won't read that part. And towards the end, he describes how he met his spiritual master Ishwarapuri at Gaya. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a grahastha at that time. His father had passed away, and he came from Navadvip to Gaya to perform the last rites of the parents. As you may be knowing, Gaya is a place where there is the lotus feet of Vishnu, and that is the place where Pinda Pradhana, last rites are performed for the departed souls. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was performing those things for his father, and at that time he meets Ishwarapuri. A very beautiful account of what happens there is described. So he tells that his spiritual master told him to chant the names of Krishna, and he told him to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his instruction very seriously and started chanting. And then he describes chanting and chanting and chanting. Suddenly he found hairs were standing on end. And he found that there were tears coming from his eyes. And then he found that he could not just sit and chant. He was dancing. And he was sometimes laughing, sometimes dancing, and hair standing on end, tears coming from his eyes. He was manifesting all of these kinds of ecstasies. And all this was happening because he was chanting Krishna's names. So he didn't know, he was a little confused. What's happened? And he goes to the spiritual master and he asks him. I'll read from that part in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks his guru, Ishwarapuri, Kiba mantra dila gosani, kiba thara bala. Japite japite mantra karile pagala. So he's telling Gosani, he's referring to his spiritual master, Gosani, Goswami, my dear spiritual master. Kiba mantra dila Gosani, kiba tara bala. What kind of a mantra have you given me, my dear spiritual master? And what is its power? What is its bala? Japite, japite, mantra karile pagala. And I've been chanting and chanting. What has happened to me? I've gone mad. People around who are telling, they say that you have really gone mad. Why are you crying like this? Why are you laughing? Why are you jumping and dancing like this? You seem to have gone crazy. So he goes to the spiritual master and submits this. And then he tells him, Hasai na chai more karaye krandana. Hasai, sometimes I am laughing. Nachai, I am dancing. More karaye krandana. Sometimes I am crying. Eta shuni guru hasi bolile vachana. When his guru heard, Ishwarapuri heard that, Guru hasi, there was a smile on the face of his spiritual master because he was very pleased. Bolile vachana. And then he said. So, Prabhupada writes here in the purport, when the disciple develops love of God like this, the spiritual master is most pleased. Because the perfection of all spiritual life is to develop love for Krishna. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had manifested that. And so, Eta Shuni, when the spiritual master heard that, Guru Hasi Bolilo Vachana. And then he said these words. Now let's see what he says. The spiritual master. Chanting the holy name in ecstasy causes one to dance, laugh and cry. When my spiritual master heard all this, he smiled and then began to speak. He said, the spiritual master said, Krishna Nam Mahamantre Ete Swabhav. E jape Tare Krishna Upajai Bhav. It's a very beautiful thing. His spiritual master said, this is the nature of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna Nam Mahamantre Ete Swabhav. This is the swabhav of the Krishna Nam Mahamantra. E jape, if somebody chants this mantra, Tare Krishna Upajaya Bhava. Bhava, feelings of ecstasy, feelings of emotions, and Upajaya, it arouses, it arises. Tare Krishna Upajaya, Krishna Bhava Upajaya. It leads to the revival, development of such Krishna Bhava. It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. Just see, this is the word of Ishwar Puri. So the mantra that we are chanting every day, its swabhava is that it arouses Krishna Bhava, Krishna Bhava Upajaya. There is another part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is big discussion about the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, and that will free one from all contaminations and sinful activities of many lives and all of that. Actually, there's a wonderful discussion there. Actually, those are very, very preliminary effects of the holy name. Chanting of the holy name mitigates the sinful reactions. Those are all, definitely those are the effects. But that's not the highest effect. Even a glimmer of the holy name, even the abhasa of the holy name can destroy all the sinful reactions. The real glory of the holy name of Krishna is that it awakens Krishna Bhava, love of God, ecstatic love of God. So, actually, this is an important thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches. Love of God is not some kind of a passive intellectual understanding or something like that. It is something, in fact, all the intellectual understanding exists. It's not out of ignorance. All of the understanding exists. And then when the conditioned soul is purified of all the anarthas, and when the conditioned soul is freed from the effects of sinful reactions, and when the conditioned soul is elevated to the transcendental platform, when that soul elevated to the transcendental platform, now a liberated soul, is enlightened, and when that enlightenment reaches the highest levels of enlightenment, by the mercy of a spiritual master who is in that highest level of enlightenment, then that ecstatic Krishna prema awakens. So one has to be very fortunate. One should know that this is the right path and cleanse his heart and become free of sinful activities, become freed of all the anarthas, come to the transcendental platform, and on that transcendental platform one will be able to understand Krishna, the signs of Krishna, and one must be fortunate to have a very elevated spiritual master who can give. If I have 100 rupees, I can give you 100 rupees. If you ask me, give me 1 lakh rupees and I have 100 rupees, I can't give you 1 lakh. I can only give you 100 rupees. So if I have 1 lakh rupees and you ask me 1 lakh, I can give you 1 lakh. What I have, I can give. So in the same way, the spiritual master must himself be on an elevated stage. Then he can initiate you into that elevated status of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, he cannot. So one has to be very fortunate to meet a spiritual master of that caliber. Not very easy, not very common. It's very rare. So that was happening to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was meeting Ishvara Puri, who was in a very elevated stage, and he gave him the holy name, told him to chant, and by his chanting, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and he has taken the form of an avatar of a devotee, and to propagate Krishna consciousness, the importance of the chanting of the holy name. And what is Krishna Prema? He wants to teach all of these things. So he begins to manifest this, and when his spiritual master hears about it, he's very happy, and then he says, Krishna Nam Mahamantre Ete Swabhav. This is the nature. So, Ejape Tare Krishna Upajai Bhav. So, if somebody chants, it is supposed to bring this effect of Krishna Bhava Upajaya. His spiritual master continued, Ishvara Puri continued. Krishna Vishayika Prema Parama Purushartha Yare Age Trunatulya Chari Purushartha. Purushartha means an achievement in the human form of life. Artha means something that you achieve. Purushartha, something valuable that you have achieved. Generally, in Vedic culture, there is Chari Purushartha, 4 Purusharthas. And that is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. One must follow Dharma, and because of following Dharma, there will be Artha, there will be economic development in one's life. And because of economic development, one can fulfill one's material desires, Kama. And then if you follow Kama, if you are pursuing material desires, according to religious principles of Dharma, gradually you will become disinterested and you will become interested in moksha, and you will try to seek out for moksha. This is Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Chatush Purushartha or Chari Purushartha, what is described here. So, his spiritual master is saying, this Krishna Vishaika Prema, love of Krishna, Parama Purushartha, is higher than the 4 Purushartha. This is the 5th Purushartha. Something that is far higher than the normally recommended 4 Purusharthas. Generally, the world, the human society is encouraged to pursue these 4 Purusharthas. Now, this is something higher than that. Krishna Vishaika Prema Parama Purushartha Yare Age Trunatulya Chari Purushartha. Before this 5th Purushartha, Krishna Prema, these 4 are Trunatulya. Truna means a straw, a grass, and Tulya means its value. And before Krishna Prema, these 4 just fades away as insignificant achievements. So the achievement of Krishna Prema is so elevated compared to that. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, they are Trunatulya. They are like straw. They are insignificant. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ishvara Puri is telling Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and liberation, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, are known as the 4 goals of life, Purushartha. But before love of Godhead, Krishna Prema, the 5th and the highest goal, Parama Purushartha, these appear as insignificant as straw in the street, Trunatulya. You see, very beautiful. Next. Panchama Purushartha Premanandamruta Sindhu Mokshadi Ananda Yare Nahi Ekabindu. Very beautiful. Panchama Purushartha, this 5th one, which I am telling you about, Krishna Prema, his spiritual master continued telling. This Panchama Purushartha, 5th one, Premanandamruta Sindhu, Prema, Ananda, Amruta, Sindhu. That Prema, Krishna Prema, is Ananda and Amruta. It is full of bliss, and Amruta, it is undying. It never ends, unceasing. Anandamruta, and what quantum is that? A few drops of it? No, Sindhu, it is like an ocean. So, Panchama Purushartha Premanandamruta Sindhu Mokshadi Ananda Yaranahi Ekabindu. And in front of this, moksha and others, and the ananda that you get in moksha. It is not that there is no pleasure in moksha. There is pleasure in moksha. But the pleasure of all of those is like ekabindu. It is like a drop. For a devotee who has actually developed bhava, the pleasure derived from dharma, artha, kama and moksha appears like a drop in the presence of the sea. So that's the importance. Just see how there is difference between Krishna Prema and Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. When you do Dharma, there may be some pleasure. There is some Artha, there is some pleasure. Oh, I've become rich. There is Kama, you try to fulfill your material desires and you feel pleasure. And then you get Moksha, which is even more pleasurable. But all of these pleasures are like a drop when compared to Krishna Ananda Amruta, Krishna Prema Ananda Amruta Sindhu. So this is the promise of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the promise of our previous acharyas. There is something called Krishna Prema, which we can revive by the chanting of the holy names. And when compared to that, the joy of Krishna Prema, all others are Trunatulya, Bindu, just a drop. Next, Ishwar Puri said, Krishna namer phala prema sarvashastra kaye. This is very important. Krishna namer phala. What is the phala of Krishna nama? Someone may say it can free you from sinful reactions. It can burn up all the sinful activities of so many generations of life, so many lifetime of papa. Yes, all of that is there. But the highest benefit, Krishna namer phala prema. It is this Krishna prema, also known as prema bhakti. Sarva shastra kaye. Actually, this is the message of all the Vedic literature. But different Vedic literatures are aimed at people who are at different levels of spiritual advancement, and hence, to the extent they can appreciate and understand, Vedic literatures help them to raise them to a next level and then to the next level. Prabhupada gave this example. Imagine there are 1,000 steps to Godhead, and if you distribute all of human population, they'll be in different steps. In Kali Yuga, a large number of them will be at step 0 or somewhere there. So, if there is a Vedic instruction which can move somebody from step 0 to step 1, step 2, step 5, it is progress. And like this, there is a gradual method, and the intent of the Vedic literature is to help you come to step 100, which is Krishna Prema. But not always it is openly stated, because somebody who is in step 0, he cannot comprehend the glories of step 100. For him, a little understanding so that he moves to step 0, from 0 to 1 to 3, 5. Those are relevant instructions. It's just like there's a small child. If you want to tell him about advanced concepts of mathematics, the child will get put off if you talk about some very advanced concepts of mathematics. If there is a teacher primary school teacher who can teach the right things about mathematics and make him interested in mathematics so that he will learn more and he will improve himself more, that's relevant. In the same way, there are Vedic literatures, there are gradations in the Vedic literatures. Some literatures are meant for people who are at the level 0, level 1, level 2, because it helps them to come to level 5, level 10, and so on. So, the importance of Krishna Prema, Krishna Bhava, these are all different words that are used. In fact, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his teachings to Rupa Goswami, he gives references of Vedic literatures. In not very far from Varanasi is another place, Prayag, where this conversation happens between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, and he tells about all these things and then asks Rupa Goswami to write books where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distinguishes what is prema, what is rati, what is asakti, Krishna rati, Krishna asakti, Krishna bhava, and Krishna prema. So all of this is described in the Vedic literatures, but here, there, it's hidden, not always openly presented. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Rupa Goswami to systematically present these things. How? And Rupa Goswami describes at each of these stages what are the symptoms that are manifest. So it is very scientific, very philosophical, very, very interesting. This is how it is developed. And then comes the prema, the full blossoming. So all of these are very wonderful things. And then, so Krishna namer phala prema. This development of Krishna prema is the real fruit of Krishna nama. Sarva shastra kahe. All the Vedic literatures are actually pointing towards this. Bhagye se prema tomai karile udaya. He's saying, by good fortune, my dear disciple Chaitanya, by good fortune, bhagye, say prema, that Krishna prema, tomai karile udaya. and that has become awakened in your heart. You are such a fortunate person. So that's why the Guru was very pleased and he was very happy, and he was telling this, the disciple was telling him, what kind of a mantra have you given, my dear master? I've been chanting and chanting and people are saying you've gone crazy. Korile Pagala. He has made you mad. So the spiritual master is saying, no, you're very fortunate, my dear son, my dear disciple. That madness is the greatest thing on earth. And so, like this, we see very, very beautiful portions of Chaitanya Charitamrita, very beautiful poetry. This is written by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. He is known as Krishna Dasa Kaviraja. He was considered to be a very, very great poet, and I don't know Bengali, but just reading that, somehow it is so sweet and it is so spiritual and it is so very, very relishable. So please continue to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. Like this, there are thousands of wonderful portions in Chaitanya Charitamrita that we can read. So as I said, I will read a little bit and then I will also answer a few questions for some time. Okay, here is the first question by Haridwar Das. Okay. In so many places in Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned that this is most confidential knowledge, like 9.1. Oh, this Haridwar Das seems to be a very scholarly person. 18.65, 15.19. So actually, what is the most confidential knowledge? Most confidential knowledge. Okay, the rest of things not good. All right. I must share with you my personal story of how I understood this, what is most confidential knowledge. About 35 years ago, or maybe even 40 years ago, I was still a college student. And then I had read Bhagavad Gita, portions of it, not everything. I had read here and there a little bit. And then I read about this message, confidential knowledge. And then it struck me because, from those days in my college days and my little awareness of the world at that time, how it must have been around 19 years or so, 20 years or so. Why is this knowledge called confidential? The very same question had occurred to me. And then there was one very important spiritual leader in ISKCON, and I went and asked him, and then he asked me, where did you read? And then I told him I got the Bhagavad Gita, 9.1. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyam yanasuyave jnana vijnana sahitam yagnatva mokshase ashubhat. So I read that portion, and then somehow some discussion happened, but then couldn't really understand what was really the reason. And so that devotee gave some explanation, but then it was really, somehow I couldn't properly understand, maybe my fault. And then I kept thinking about it. And then a few years later, I joined ISKCON, and then I was doing various services. And then one day I had gone to the BDA office. The BDA office, that's where we got this land, Hare Krishna Hill land, was allotted by Bangalore Development Authority. And then I would go and meet different officers there. And see, for me, coming from college, I didn't know what was a government office and how it works and all of that. I was always curious to know how things run and how the government runs and how what is this development authority. I was always a little curious about organizations and how they function and all that. So when I go in front of a big officer and I would sit there, and those officers would speak to us a little while, but then they would also get distracted with some phone call and something else will come and all of that. So I would be scanning on his table what all different things are there like that. I would be curious, inquisitive, what's going on. And sometimes I was sitting in one executive engineer, BDA, I was sitting in his office, and then he was busy with some phone call and attending something. And then I was peeping at all the different files. So many files were there on his table. And then one file, it said, confidential file. Oh, I said, oh, look at that. There is a confidential file. Here they have got. And then I used to observe like that. So once, when I had seen, and then he had a call, and then he had to go. And then he got up and he said, I don't know what he used to address me as Swamiji or whatever he said. See, I've got a call. I've got my boss is calling me. I'm going. Come and see me tomorrow. And he was in a rush to go. And when he rushed and he was about to go, then suddenly he came back to his seat, picked up this confidential file, went to the cupboard which was there, put it on top of it, closed it, locked it, took the key in his pocket and walked out. And then I thought, yeah, look at this. So there were hundreds of files on his table, but that particular confidential file, he put it inside the cupboard, locked it, put the key in his pocket and walked out. So then it struck me, you see, this is the meaning of confidential. So again, I related that to the Bhagavad Gita. Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyam yanasuyave jnana vijnana. Guhyatamam means most confidential knowledge. So then I started thinking, if it is the most confidential knowledge, this Bhagavad Gita must be locked up inside a cupboard, and the key we must be carrying in our pocket like that man did, the officer did, the engineer did. So I was thinking. But then we are distributing Bhagavad Gita freely in the, so many 50 rupees, you will get a Bhagavad Gita. Most confidential knowledge for 50 rupees. You know what's going on here. And and we in ISKCON, we have translated to so many languages around the world, and devotees have, in airports, here, there, with a lot of austerity, distributed this everywhere. And what about us? Before us, there was Gorakhpur, Gita Press in our country, and they have translated. You will get it for 5 rupees. Why 50 rupees? The most confidential knowledge for 5 rupees in any language in our country that you want. They have been distributing this for maybe, I don't know how many years, 50, 60, 100 years probably. So this question was always bothering me. Why is Krishna saying that this is confidential knowledge? And then I asked a few devotees also here and there, and then I would get some answer, but never a proper answer. And can you imagine, I lived with this question unanswered, or at least not satisfactorily answered. Oh, I must be conscious of time. Not so satisfactorily answered for about 18 years or 19 years. In 1999, there was a certain kind of a revolution that happened in our temple in ISKCON Bangalore. I'm not sure if every one of you are familiar with this. I won't go into that. I'll keep that for another occasion. Around 1999, a very big revolution happened in ISKCON Bangalore, and then so many things happened. And one of the things that happened was we started reading Srila Prabhupada's books and his conversations and his lectures with a lot of seriousness. That's one of the most important things that I see happen in my personal life. Reading and taking interest in Srila Prabhupada's words very, very carefully, recognizing that Prabhupada was so special. So by then in 1999, we had a Veda base. I don't know if everybody is familiar with Veda base. Veda base is actually that some of the wonderful devotees have done. They have put all of Srila Prabhupada's instructions, his books, his letters, his lectures, his room conversations, all of that in one place, and created a search engine. It's loaded on the hard disk of a computer and on mobile phones nowadays and all of that. And it has a search engine. So in 1999, I was searching in Prabhupada's books, in his instructions, what does Prabhupada say about confidential knowledge? And bang, I got a wonderful answer from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada gives an example. First he says, confidential knowledge means this knowledge is accessible only to qualified persons. That is why it is called confidential knowledge. And Prabhupada gives an example. Say, for instance, there is a bank. Somebody from the street walks into the bank. Okay? It's a big bank, like one of our nationalized PSU banks or something. Big bank, and then he walks into the bank and he looks around. He's come from the street. And then he goes there, he sees a board, cashier. And he goes to the cashier. And then he peeps into the cashier's cabin. And then he asks the cashier, how much cash do you have in the bank today? Right? What will the cashier do? He'll look at him and he says, who are you? And then he may call the security guard and have this man thrown out of the bank. Right? Because how much money is there in the bank? It's confidential knowledge. Somebody from the street cannot know that information. He'll be thrown out. So that man was thrown out, and then after half an hour later, the bank manager, he finished his work on the phone call, something in from his cabin, and then he was walking around and he was just doing his rounds, and then he was meeting some customers and asking them, is everything okay? Did you get your service? And then he came to the cashier's cabin, and then he peeped into the cashier's cabin, and then he asked him, how much money is there in the bank balance today? And the cashier looked up, and it was the manager standing there. He jumped up on his seat, from his seat, and then he looked into his ledger, olden days, or looked into his laptop or his computer, modern days, and then he said, sir, there is 44 lakhs, 43,000, etc., up to the last rupee. You see, how much money is there in the bank is confidential knowledge. The manager of the bank has all the required qualifications to access that knowledge. Somebody in the street does not have. So confidential knowledge means knowledge, it can be shared with somebody provided that person has the necessary qualifications. Otherwise, it's hidden. This is the beauty. Such a wonderful explanation, isn't it? What Srila Prabhupada gave. And it had, for me, I had waited for 20 years, 18 years or so to get this clarity. And I was thrilled to hear about this wonderful explanation given by Srila Prabhupada. Then I slightly made up one more example based on what Srila Prabhupada taught. Imagine on a day, Sunday or a Saturday like this, you're sitting locked down and you're sitting in your living room on the sofa, maybe watching a television or maybe hearing a class or whatever. And then the bell rings, and then you go to the doorbell. The doorbell rings, and you go to the door, and you open the door, and you look at him. There is a stranger standing at the door, and then the stranger asks you, all your savings in your life, where have you kept the savings and how much money is it? You will definitely get annoyed, isn't it? Some stranger who is coming and asking how much I have saved and where I have kept. You look at him and probably slam the door on his face and say, get lost. Who was that guy? And then you feel relieved. Lock the door, make sure he doesn't come in. Some guy is asking about all my savings, where I have kept, how much money I have. And then you come back to the sofa and you sit. Who was this guy coming and asking? Suddenly your phone rings. And then you pick up the phone, and that's your mother. And your mother is asking, my dear son, how are you? What is going on in your life? One thing was bothering me. I hope you have made some savings in life. How much savings have you made? Where have you kept those savings? Is it all safe? Then you will say, tell your mother, Mommy, don't worry, I've got this site, I've got this, I've made all these arrangements, I've put it safely. Totally maybe about 4 crore savings I have made, or whatever that amount is. See, you will share that information with your mother, not with a stranger. How much money you have saved and where you have kept that money, that's confidential information. Somebody, just a stranger, cannot knock on your door and ask for such information and you will not share. But if your mother asks you that question, you will happily share that information. Now you see how? So, if you notice carefully, whenever Krishna uses this word, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnana vijnana sahitam. In other words, Krishna is sharing in the Bhagavad Gita very, very elevated knowledge only if somebody has the necessary qualifications, or if one is willing to acquire those qualifications, if one has got that willingness that I must know, I must understand this, then this knowledge will be shared. Otherwise, you can distribute it for 50 rupees, you can distribute it for 5 rupees, you can distribute it free. If that person doesn't change in his heart and comes up with the right attitude for understanding Bhagavad Gita, it shall remain sealed and you will not have access to it. That's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita knowledge. Krishna has spoken it, it's written there, it's the most confidential knowledge. You can publish it, you can freely give it away, but still, unless you have the key, you won't be able to open that and figure out that confidential knowledge. And here in the 9.1, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave, he says, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami. Now I shall describe, I shall reveal guhyatamam gnanam. Arjuna, idam tu te guhyatamam jnanam pravakshyami anasuyave. Pravakshyami anasuyave, because you are not envious of me. If you read the translation of the book, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave jnana vijnana sahitam yagnatva mokshase ashubhat. Prabhupada has translated this word anasuyave to mean not envious of me. I'll share with you another interesting story of what happened about this word anasuyave, not envious of me. Several years ago, if you're familiar, Srila Prabhupada wrote a book, Raja Vidya. Actually, this Raja Vidya, this book is Prabhupada giving a series of lectures on the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And the first verse is, idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anasuyave. And the first chapter talks about this verse and maybe a few other verses also. And it talks about, I will reveal this most confidential knowledge to you, Arjuna, because you are not envious of me, anasuyave. So, maybe 15, 20 years or maybe 25 years before this happened, I was working on to translate this Rajavidya book into Kannada language. And we were looking for who can do the translation. And then someone gave me a reference of one good professor in Mysore University. So I traveled to Mysore, took the book with me, and met him in his house. You can imagine 30 years back, Mysore was a very, very pleasant, even now maybe it's very pleasant and not so thickly populated like in Bangalore is. And it was very, very pleasant. I remember those days visiting. And went to him and gave him the book. It's a small book, you may remember. It's about 120 pages or so. And then requested him, can you please translate this book to Kannada? He looked at the book and then he said, give me 1 week's time and I will let you know. And I said, okay. And then I came away and I was supposed to be in touch with him. And after a week or so, I called him from Bangalore and then I asked him, well, I had talked to you about that book and then so on. So he said, I am coming to Bangalore on so-and-so date. Can you please meet me? I said, okay, I'll meet you. So a date was fixed, a time was fixed, someplace, I can't remember where. And it was near KR Circle, I remember that much. So I went and met him. So he looked at me, and then we met and we discussed, and then I said, he had brought the book with him in his hand. And he said, shall we walk down here? And then we walked down. There used to be one Indian coffee house, coffee vending machine. So he said, let's go and have coffee. I said, okay, I'll come with you. You can have coffee. So we walked there, and then he bought his coffee, and then we sat down there, outdoor. And then he was sipping his coffee, and he said, you see, I opened your book and I read a few pages, maybe 10, 15, 20 pages I read. But in the very first page, I have a doubt. Here in this book, Anasuya Way, your Swamiji has translated, he's referring to Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta, your Swamiji has translated the word Anasuya Way as envious of me. Anasuya Way means envious. And I looked at a few other, this publication, that publication, different translations of this book, and they all said Anasuya Way, envious, because you are not envious. In other words, most translations says, Arjuna, I will share with you this most confidential knowledge because you are not envious. Because you are a good man, you are not envious of whatever people and this and that, neighbors, colleagues, and all of those kind of things. Because you're a good man, you're not envious. But Srila Prabhupada has translated that as envious of me. So a professor, you see, is an intelligent man. Envious of me, envious of Krishna, envious of God. Who can ever be envious of God? Why has your Swamiji translated that as envious of God, envious of me? And then I had a little discussion. I was young those days. I don't know what I spoke and what explanation I gave. I don't know whether the professor was convinced. I cannot remember all those things. But at least this exchange happened, and that struck me. It's a fact that Srila Prabhupada has carefully translated that word as envious of me, because this is one of the important things that Bhagavad Gita teaches. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu points out, Srila Prabhupada points out, that we are here in this material world because we are envious of Krishna. Krishna's position is to be the supreme master. Krishna's position is to be the supreme enjoyer. Krishna's position is to be the supreme well-wisher, friend of all living entities. Just look at our own lives under our own activities. We are all trying to do these three things. We are trying to be the controllers. We are trying to be the owners, proprietors of various things. And we try to acquire more and more. And when we acquire more and more, then we feel good. Actually, Krishna is the owner of everything. We cannot own anything. Living entity is nishkinchana. He cannot possess anything. What can we possess? That is why with hard work we possess this property, this car, that car, all those things. And finally death comes, we leave everything and go alone. Can we take anything with us? Nothing we can take with us. You see? So this is what the truth is. Krishna is the proprietor, but we want to be the proprietor. Krishna is the supreme controller. We want to be in that position of control. We are all trying to be the controllers of, if somebody says, I'm an owner of a company which has got 2,000 employees, and in 5 years I will have 10,000 employees, and that feels good. Maybe there's a good thing about he's taking care of 10,000 families. That's good, that's part of it. But there is also an element that I'm in control of bigger things, I'm in control of greater things and greater property. So actually that's a competition with God. That's because we want to be like God. This is controller. And second one, very, very important, is Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. But we try to be the enjoyers in this world. We want to use our senses and experience pleasure for ourselves. Now, are you saying that, you may wonder, are you saying that spiritual life means no enjoyment, only suffering? What kind of a life are you recommending in the name of spirituality? No, 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 no. We serve Krishna, and by giving pleasure to Krishna, that gives us pleasure. Because we are connected to Krishna in that way. We can't be the primary enjoyers. We have to be primary servants of Krishna. And when Krishna is pleased, we are constitutionally connected to him in such a way, we will become pleased. We will become happy. Just like if you water the root of a tree, all the branches and the twigs and the leaves and the fruits and the flowers, all of them become nourished because they are connected to the root. In the same way, if we have to be happy, we cannot be independently happy because we are not independent by our constitution, by our makeup. That's our position. So recognizing that I am a spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, I must please Krishna. When I please Krishna, I become... Bhagavatam gives a very nice example. I have a mirror and I look at my face in the mirror. Now, when I decorate my face with nice makeup and all of that, and I make it look beautiful, the reflection looks beautiful. Reflection of my face looks beautiful. When I decorate here, the reflection becomes beautiful. If I don't decorate my face, I start decorating my reflection, what will happen? I'll still look funny and ugly or whatever. So, we are actually a reflection of Krishna. For our happiness, Krishna should be made happy and beautiful. If Krishna is pleased, we are his reflection, we will become pleased. So, spiritual life is prema anandamrita sindhu we talked about. But in serving Krishna with love, that way, love means to give him pleasure. And when we work for his pleasure, we become happy. This is the secret of spiritual happiness. So, forgetting that, we try to be happy ourselves. This is an expression of envy of the Lord. So, one, we want to be the controller, we want to be the enjoyer, and third, we want to be the well-wisher, friend of all living entities. Actually, Krishna is related to every living entity because everyone is coming from him. We are all discrete entities, but we want to be like Krishna and feel, I am friend of everyone, I must have good relation with everyone on my own and have nice friendly relationships and experience all this. This is our pursuit in life. This is exactly what we are doing in our lives. Pursuit of controllership and ownership, pursuit of happiness independently, and pursuit of relationships and relational pleasures independent of Krishna. This is an expression of envy. One who has become free from this envy, he can have access to this most confidential knowledge. That's why Prabhupada translated, because you are not envious of me. There are many more wonderful things like this. I'll keep it for the next tomorrow's session, when I will read again a few things from Prabhupada's books, and then I'll open up for more questions. Thank you very much. Namaste. Hare Krishna.